So if I can get my slideshow to start, that'd be great. My computer's wanting to run slow today, and I apologize. Let me try to click here. There we go. So one of the reasons I chose this particular slideshow is it's one that's promoted by Joint Commission. If you're going into healthcare, you are going to learn Joint Commission is very strict, and it's very important for them to be sure that everything is done appropriately. So once again, our objectives are kind of the same, that you understand that every place you go to work is going to have, every organization is going to have a mission statement, a vision, and values. You need to know what is and isn't professional behavior. There's a two-step approach, enforcement and engagement, related to unprofessional behavior. And you're going to come across times in your career and in your life where people are being unprofessional, whether it's you as the patient, you as a consumer in the community, or you as a professional. How do we respond to that, and what do we do? How do we correct that behavior? And then how do we deal with conflict when it comes to guiding someone that is being unprofessional? So interprofessional professionalism. I know it's kind of a crazy term, but it's it's consistent demonstration of core values based on evidence, based on really proven evidence, professionalism in your workplace. It's wanting to always do the right things, having principles, putting people before yourself, aspiring for excellence and caring, making sure you're ethical, that you respect others, that you have good professional communication, that you're accountable for your behavior, and that you want to seek out the optimal health and wellness for all individuals, not just the people that you're caring for, but also the people that you in the community. So as a healthcare professional, it's not just about taking care of patients, it's being professional in the community, and I can't stress that to you enough how important that is. So when we think about professionalism as a team approach, every part of the team is important, and every part of the team needs to have that professional attitude. And if it doesn't, it affects the team. It affects the overall effectiveness of teamwork. This is a kind of a diagram, a concept map. Some people work really well with concept maps. I'm more of a note taker. I do Cornell notes even in meetings and things, but I do that way. That's how I learn. Some people learn with concept maps and with imagery. So for me, it's more writing it down. But this is a good it's a good concept map on when you start with that mutual performance monitoring. So we're actually keeping each other accountable. We back up the behavior of professional people. We help others adapt and redirect people when behavior is not professional. That helps improve the effectiveness of the team. The thing is, sometimes we have to treat people. We have to teach people how to be professional. It's not always something that you just know. You have to learn professional behavior. We have to make sure that the professional behavior that we exhibit is what's expected at the place that we are employed. Sometimes what we consider professional may not be professional in another place. It may be okay to not have tattoos and piercings covered in one position, but when you move to another facility, that's not considered professional appearance. So we have to be able to trust each other, work together, understand, and embrace the professional expectations of where we work. That way, we can have that effective communication, effective trust, and we can actually all be on the same page. So professional conduct and high performance teams, some things you see with them is training on how to be professional, training on how to communicate, training on how to work together, training on being a team. Those are things that are so important to a high functioning professional team. High functioning professional teams in healthcare mean good outcomes for patients. That means safe patient care. It means happy coworkers. We have to reinforce, we have to positively and reinforce with each other professional behavior. We have to tell someone they're doing a good job. Sometimes it's hard. And sometimes you'll work places where no one ever tells you you're doing a good job. So you have to know that you're doing a good job. But you need to tell your neighbor, you need to tell your partner, hey, great job. Proud of the way you handled that situation. Way to go. If the people that supervise you don't do that for each other. Provide mutual support. Know when someone is having a bad day. Pay attention to your coworkers. Pay attention to your fellow student. And when they're having a bad day, help lift them up. That's the best thing you can do. You have to reinforce that they can trust you and mean that they can trust you. You have to start today. I'll tell you, I terminated more people for gossip and that is considered unprofessional behavior, for being snippy and talking about each other behind their back. I don't tolerate that. I don't tolerate that in my classroom, and I don't tolerate that as a supervisor. That is a violation of just about anywhere you work's core values. What they're promoting is a positive work environment. And gossip and backstabbing and manipulation it absolutely disrupts that positive work environment. And you can be written up and you can be fired for that. Believe me, I've done it. And I would do it again in a heartbeat, because I want people to come to work and be happy and love that they're there. Not come to work, come to class, come anywhere that I am and be miserable. Now, sometimes I give you work that's hard and that might not make you happy, but still, you have to be kind to each other and respectful. We need to provide that positive feedback, not just negative. But in the same turn, as a professional, you have to be able to accept constructive criticism. Constructive criticism is me walking up to someone who may be doing a procedure wrong and say, I appreciate how you're doing that, but let me show you a different approach. This may be more effective. And you reinforce and you give them feedback that is not necessarily completely positive, but it's not derogatory. Constructive feedback is showing you how to do something better, showing you how to do something that in the way where you work or the class you're in meets expectation. That is such a key component to communication, not just positive feedback, because let me tell you, not everybody's perfect. None of us are perfect. We all make mistakes. And when we make a mistake, we have to be able to accept constructive criticism. We have to be able to get a C on a test and then go figure out why we got a C and do better. And understand that when the teacher is telling you, well, the grammar was wrong, you weren't speaking to the right audience, the language you used wasn't appropriate, take that in and next time do better. That's constructive criticism. It's not talking down to someone. It's just saying, hey, this is how we can do it better. Or these are what the expectations are. Unprofessional conduct, and you need to understand what unprofessional conduct is. That is disruption in the workplace. It's intimidating behavior, or it's behavior that disrupts the teamwork, or it undermines safe care, or it undermines others. Questioning is not undermining, but preventing work to be done or thinking that your idea or your way is the only way, that's unprofessional. We have to be willing to listen to others. We have to be open to others' opinions. We don't have to agree with them, but we have to be open to others' opinions and to know that there possibly are multiple other ways to do things. And we have to respect that. Our way is not the only way. And now there are some things that one way is the only way. Sterile technique, when you are doing a sterile procedure, there is a specific way to do sterile procedure so you don't introduce bacteria. But there's 100 ways on how to set that sterile procedure up. But when you are doing it, the sterile technique is specific. But talking to a verbally abusive patient, there's a lot of ways to diffuse a situation. So let's talk about behaviors that would be absolutely unprofessional. being verbally abusive, yelling, cursing, talking down to, using negative language, those are all um, those are all negative behaviors. Shaming others, shaming someone in front of others. If you're in my classroom and you misbehave, or you are disrupting the entire class, I don't necessarily yell. I don't raise my voice, or try not to raise my voice. I don't yell, and I don't reprimand you in front of the entire class. I'll take you out in the hall and I'll tell you what is expected and what I will not tolerate. And then we come back and we go to work. I don't like to be yelled at. I don't like to be reprimanded. I don't like to be told or made to feel negatively about myself in front of others. But in turn, if you take me outside and tell me what I'm doing wrong, I can respect that and I can correct that. So we have to be sure that we're doing. Um, Blaming others for our behavior, scapegoating, that is absolutely unprofessional. If you do something wrong, own up to it. Say, you bet, I did it wrong. It was my fault. Physically threatening or throwing objects or slamming things down or being just a jerk. That is absolutely unprofessional. Now, those are overtly things, those are things you can see. But sometimes people have passive behaviors that are unprofessional, and those would be things like refusing to answer questions or return calls. If you send me an email, I'm going to get back to you hopefully within that day or the next day, early the next morning. I'm going to try to respond to you as soon as possible. If I didn't want to deal with you and I just didn't respond to you, that is absolutely unprofessional. Even if I don't agree with you or I don't like what I'm going to have to say to you, I still need to deal with it. You have to deal with issues. Backstabbing, talking behind each other's backs, being intentionally causing problems for someone else, but not doing it to their face. That is unprofessional behavior. Withholding information so that someone can't do their job, or withholding information so that you don't get in trouble. That is unprofessional. Trying to get other people to take your side, knowing that you've done something wrong, but trying to get other people to see that you did it right. Or maybe a supervisor has reprimanded you because you made an error, and you go and you talk negatively about them, and go, you know what I mean? You understand what I'm saying? You're on my side, aren't you? That's not appropriate. Undermining others and retaliatory behavior. Getting reprimanded by a supervisor and then sending in, calling human resources and telling them that that the supervisor is being unprofessional when they're really not. They're just trying to get everybody to do their job appropriately. So those are things we have to think about. Those would be unprofessional behaviors. You have to understand what unprofessional behavior is before you can be professional. Now, I will talk to you guys about Joint Commission, because Joint Commission, they control a whole lot of what goes on in healthcare, and they can actually shut hospitals down if you're a Joint Commission accredited location. So, according to Joint Commissions, a Sentinel Event Alert number 40, a Sentinel event is something that can get your hospital shut down. Intimidating and disrupting behavior can foster medical errors, contribute to poor patient satisfaction, and prevent preventable adverse outcomes, increase the cost of care, and cause qualified clinicians, administrators, and managers to seek new positions in more professional environments. What that's saying is, if you are unprofessional, you can undermine the entire facility, and you literally can cause people to leave. A Sentinel event, once again, is something that can absolutely cause a hospital to be sanctioned or even shut down if it's bad enough. Patterns of unprofessional conduct, lateral violence, that's verbal or emotional abuse of fellow employees. Talking down to, talking negatively to, bullying, those are all offenses of abuse. And bullying and being verbally abusive to people, whether it's the people that are sitting next to you, the people in the room with you today, or the people you work with, it will get you terminated. You can be terminated. I could be turned into the board of nursing, and they could sanction my license. They could suspend my license for a period of time for being unprofessional. So there are two approaches to dealing with unprofessional behavior. We can we can we can give people the ability to enforce and take care of unprofessional behavior, or we can work together in a collaborative and an engaging environment to take care of those behaviors. So those are the two ways we're going to look at. There's a tier of ways of types of intervention that can help improve. No change, actually, disciplinary action and termination will take place. That's going to be the top thing. So if you don't change your behavior when you're being unprofessional, eventually you're going to be terminated. If the pattern persists, it's going to go up the chain. Your direct supervisor is going to address it. Then maybe a team leader, that would be like your direct supervisor. Then maybe the supervisor, a supervisor that is maybe the shift supervisor or the unit supervisor is going to put you on a process improvement plan to tell you, okay, these are the things we expect. If this behavior continues, this was how I wrote people up. I would tell them what happened. I would tell them what the expected behavior was. I would give them a time frame to change their behavior, and if they did not change their behavior in that amount of time, they could be reprimanded again or terminated. So that can happen. If the apparent pattern, those are the worst things that can happen. Hopefully, if there's an issue, hopefully there's no issue and everybody's being professional for the majority, and within your group you can say, hey, that's a behavior we don't accept. That's not policy here. It's against our policy to talk negatively or to gossip or whatever. You can handle that within your group. But if you're truly unprofessional, sometimes you'll get called in just to have a conversation with your supervisor, direct supervisor, so they understand, hey, this has been going on and I really need this behavior to stop. And, this is how you can change that behavior. And you discuss that with your direct supervisor. But if it continues to go up until eventually we will be terminated for unprofessional behavior. Tiered interventions, which most places work with, they will go through multiple individuals until it is your unit supervisor and HR saying, this is your final warning. If we bring you in again, we will terminate you. So it's not all negative feedback. We talk about the positive things, but we have to discuss negative behavior, and we have to resolve it. And we have to give you, as a supervisor, we have to give you ways to resolve it. So there are 4 steps to responding to unprofessional behavior, and that's that addressing it when it starts. If you are working with someone who's being unprofessional, it is okay to just say, it's against our policy. And I really would hate for this to jeopardize your job. You really probably should. I would really hate for this to, this behavior to continue and it affect you in any way. This is how we handle situations, or this is what is expected of us. Because if that behavior doesn't continue, people will stop working together and patient care suffers. So the 4 steps to responding to unprofessional behavior, first thing we have to do is assess it and see what's happened. Then we have to decide to say, you know what, we're not going to accept this behavior. We have to connect with that person and help them correct it. And then we have to evaluate and come back to them and say, hey, you're doing a great job. I see that there's been no more of this, no more unprofessional behavior. Way to go. Or you have to evaluate it and say, this behavior is continued. Now we have to go to the next level. So there are some examples. If it is an immediate risk, you have to tell someone, I'm concerned about this behavior. I'm uncomfortable with this behavior, or this is causing safety issues. You have to utilize those words if someone's being truly unprofessional in the healthcare environment. There are 2 challenge rules. You can assertively address that, or you can take it to your supervisor. So we have to connect and we have to correct. When we connect and correct, then we have to really address that. There's a couple of acronyms there, PIRLA and DESC. Those are two ways that we handle it, and so we have to be sure that we are handling those appropriately. Sometimes with just initial feedback, things improve because people don't understand, and it doesn't compromise your work environment. But once again, we have to be okay to understand that not that constructive criticism, not derogatory, not negative, not demeaning criticism, but constructive criticism, reminding what policy is. Those are ways that we handle it. So let's talk about the PERLA approach. That means presence and empathy. You have to figure out why someone's being negative or why they're being unprofessional. You have to be, if you're a supervisor or you're someone who's a leader in your group, you have to be around to know. You have to understand why they're behaving the way they are. You have to acknowledge the feelings, or you have to acknowledge the situation. Then you have to reflect on it with the person and as the supervisor. You have to be willing to listen openly, and then you have to ask questions. Those are ways we resolve unprofessional behavior. PERLA is presence, empathy, acknowledgement, reflection, listening openly, and asking questions. So, when you ask questions, it may be that they don't know any better. Here's an example. Nurse 1, are you kidding me? I can't believe this is the assignment you gave me. How am I supposed to take care of this guy who is bleeding, and I've got to get another patient ready for OR? So there are ways you could handle that. You could say, it's your job, suck it up and do it. That's not professional on either account. That's me reacting in an unprofessional behavior. But what you can say is, it seems that you're overwhelmed. What would help you right now so that you could feel more comfortable taking care of these patients? What can we do right now? And then later on, you can meet with them and you can make a long-term plan to help that. Also, you can say that I can't believe another thing is, I can't believe you went ahead and left the clinic early yesterday. You really left us in a bind trying to get all the patients prepared before the provider saw them. So you can say, I can see my absence caused some difficulty. And then you can ask them questions. How could I have helped you? Me leaving was inevitable. What could we have done to make the situation better for you? So those are ways that you do that. I'm going to skip past, and this is the reflect and reframe. It figures that a new person involved would make a medication error. It seems like every time something bad happens, he's had something to do with it. How do you respond to that? The response would be to know that rarely is one person to blame for everything that goes wrong. So what you might add is, what do you think contributed to this situation? So most of the time, anytime things happen, most of the time it doesn't just involve one person. Sometimes it does. But you may ask the person, okay, what do you think contributed to this? What do you think contributed to the error? So you're saying that you're concerned about medication safety in the unit. What's your biggest concern? That means that you're taking a step back and you're asking them, what's your biggest concern? How can we work? What can we do to work on that? Or it's hard to say what happened since he's not here. Have you spoken with him directly about your concerns? Every supervisor is going to want you as a professional to address the issue professionally first, and say, I'm concerned about this behavior. If you haven't done that, they're going to want you to do that. So you want to simply clarify questions. You want to be sure that you want to be simple with your questions. You want to say, tell me what would help you right now. Would there be a better place to have this conversation? If someone's throwing a fit in front of or having a meltdown in front of a group of people, patients, other coworkers, you want to take them away from that. And you want to say, let's go in my office, or let's go over here and talk about that. Let's go into one of these rooms and talk about that. Also, you need to know what respect looks like to you and to your coworkers and to your fellow students or whoever you're in a group with. Understand what they think is respect. Respect is not My idea is the only idea, my way or the highway. That's not respect. Respect would be listening. Um, so what's going on? And you can ask somebody, so why are you so upset? Tell me what's going on. What do you think caused this behavior, or what do you think made this behavior worse? How can we accomplish this by how can we accomplish, or what do you hope to accomplish by us talking? How can we what do you want out of this conversation? Um, and then what can we do right now to meet your needs? Those are absolutely specific things to say. Clarifying. You always want to clarify what someone is saying. I can't believe you went ahead and left the clinic yesterday. Same kind of thing. When you say I can see that you were difficult. It was difficult when I was gone. That's understandable. You can then you can say we had discussed we had discussed that I needed that early leave. How could we have better prepared for my absence? What could we have done? How could we have made that better? So those are things you're going to do. The second stage is DESCA. That's describe the specific behavior, express how it makes you feel, and what your true concerns are. Suggest alternatives and seek agreement, or and then clarify the consequences in terms of the impacts or goals of the team. So here's some examples. When you didn't answer your pager or return when you don't answer your pager or your phone call, things don't get done. That may be an example. Well, how you would explain is, I'm worried that I wouldn't be able to give safe care to a patient. That would be, that may be what you're saying. If you're really mad about a pager, how you might, someone not answering a call, how you respond is letting them know why you're upset that they didn't respond to you, and then find an alternative. I need for you to respond or have someone call if you're busy. Is that something we could try? Can someone be helping you? If not, I don't know how I can proceed with my work. So those are things you need to do. If you're in a group situation working, you may say, I texted you yesterday for us to start working on our project and you never responded. I'm concerned that when you don't respond, we're not going to be able to complete our work as a group. How can we work together? Is there an alternative? Is there a better way for us? Can we set up a time as opposed to us just texting when we have time? Maybe you had practice, or maybe you had something going on with your family. Let's set up a schedule. That's a way to handle that and make it better. So be sure that you understand what PERLA and DESC stand for, and some examples of how they're being used. Okay, so we're not going to go through this exercise specifically because you're going to do a case study based on professionalism, and you're going to answer some questions, and you're going to do a little work with that. Okay, so let's skip through the debrief and the practice exercises because you're going to do some of those things. But just remember that sometimes we work with people who have high conflicting personalities, and those are individuals who have a lifelong pattern of high conflict. They strive on conflict. They don't feel like their life is okay or working functionally unless there's constant conflict going on. They typically have traits that of those with a personality disorder who think that conflict is normal. And sometimes we have to kind of redirect and fix that. Sometimes we can't fix that. And in healthcare, there's really no place for someone who has a high conflict, who has to constantly have conflict going on, who's constantly kind of, as us old folks say, stirring the pot, constantly causing problems. There's no place for that in healthcare. Destructive conflict behaviors. Sometimes people who have a high conflict behavior truly want there to be problems, and so they are also destructive behavior. There's no place for destructive behavior in healthcare. You can read through the tips on management. I want you guys to have a wonderful day and work on your case study, okay? If you have any questions or concerns, please, please be sure that you are giving me a call or sending me a message so that we can fix any issues you might be having. All right, everybody, have a good day.